So today we're going to talk about goals and how to plan for success with setting smart goals. And a lot of the goals that we put on the whiteboard just a minute ago were active goals. They were goals that you could achieve because you set your sight on something and then you started working at it. And there's a big difference between active goals and passive goals. You know, passive goals kind of happen to you by happenstance. But active goals, that's what we want to focus on today, is how to actually make things happen. It's like the difference between a boat that you put in the water and you just let it go to see where you're going to end up. And you can float around and you can find your way to a new destination. But in order to get to a particular goal, it takes dedication. It takes vision. It takes the ability to recalibrate your direction based on what happens along the journey. Currents can throw you off course and they can completely change the path that you need to take to your goal. But it's through the reminder of your goal that you can find your destination. So most of you know me. My name's Caelan Huntress. I run a digital marketing agency called Stellar Platforms. And I've spent the last 10 years traveling the world with my young family while running an online business. And the whole reason I've been able to do this successfully is because I learned how to set goals. And the types of goals that we're talking about today are SMART goals. Has anybody ever heard this acronym before? SMART goals? Yeah. When it originally appeared in 1981 in an issue of Management Review, a gentleman by the name of George T. Doran, he defined these 5 words as a SMART goal. If a goal is specific, measurable, assignable, relevant, and time-bound. He said that's a SMART goal. And what I like about these 5 words is that you can use these words to interrogate your own goals. If you set a goal that's not specific, it's not SMART. And so you can look at a vague goal and say, well, what would make this SMART? And it can help you define a better goal. I like what Albert Hubbard said. He said, many people, when they fail in life, it's not because they don't have brains or ability or even courage. It's just because they've never organized their energy around a goal. And when you can organize your energy around a goal, then you can really make some magnificent things happen. So here's a quick agenda of what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about the 4 types of goals. I'll give you some smart goal setting techniques, and then we'll dive deeper into why we want these goals with the 5 whys. I'll share with you how sharing your goals with others improves performance, and then we'll talk about how to monitor your progress with the accountability formula. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to get a pencil or a pen and a notebook if you don't already have one nearby, because we're going to be setting goals during this masterclass. So make sure you have something handy where you can write. So does anybody here set New Year's resolutions? No, yes, I'm very, yeah. Of those of you who set them, do you always keep all of your resolutions? No. There was a study done by the University of Scranton, and they found that 80% of New Year's resolutions are broken by February. Less than 2 months, and 80% of all resolutions are broken. And by December, 92% of resolutions are broken. That means only 8% of resolutions actually make it through the entire year. And I think that's great. I happen to think that breaking New Year's resolutions is good for you. I've been making resolutions for a long time. And since 2013, I've been publishing my New Year's resolutions on my blog. And there's a link here in the slides. I keep them all tagged so that I can instantly go back and review them. Because I find that review is just as important as making the resolutions themselves. Every year I do an annual review where I look back on the year before and I see how many resolutions I kept, how many I sort of kept, and how many I didn't keep. And generally, Less than half of my resolutions get this blue check mark. Less than half of my resolutions are kept. But I still make resolutions every year, because resolutions are not a finite goal that has to be kept no matter what. Resolutions are guides. And they work a lot like the GPS in your car. You set a goal of your destination and you say, I want to get here. And your GPS will tell you turn by turn where to go and how to get there. But sometimes there might be a shortcut that's different than what you originally thought. Sometimes your goal completely changes in the middle of the trip. Have you ever had that happen? You're in the middle of going somewhere and you have to tell your GPS, oh, I need to go somewhere different now. Do you feel bad that you didn't make your original goal to get to your original? No, there's somewhere else to go. You found something out along the journey that made you decide to go elsewhere. And that's why we need to break New Year's resolutions. They're only useful until they're not. If they give you a lot of guilt and they make you feel bad, then you shouldn't set New Year's resolutions. But if you're willing to break them when things change, you can take advantage of the momentum that they give you. And I'll give you an example. This year, I had a goal to write a book in the month of November. And there's this phenomenon that happens online called National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo, as writers called it. And I've participated in NaNoWriMo 6 times over the last decade, and I've completed it twice. This year, in 2020, I decided that I wanted to write a book called Marketing Yourself. And so starting November 1st, I got up at 5 in the morning. I wrote for 2 hours before I started my workday, and I got a lot of momentum. And after that first week, I started falling ill. I have a chronic health condition, which means that I can't use my American work ethic to bulldoze through problems like I used to. And if I work too hard, my body falls apart. And so my goal had to change. I couldn't wake up at 5 in the morning anymore. Instead of writing 2 hours before the rest of my workday started, I wrote 1 hour in the middle of my workday. And my goal changed. On November 30th, I did not have the manuscript for my book done. I finished it on December 21st. Did I fail because I didn't keep my goal? No, I got the momentum I needed to make progress. And that's really what goals are for, is to make progress. But you only make progress if you write them down. Writing your goals down will dramatically increase the likelihood that you'll achieve your goal. There was a study done by Dr. Gail Matthews at Dominican University, and she found that writing down your goals statistically increases the likelihood that you'll achieve it by 42%. You're much more likely to achieve a goal just by writing it. My kids got me this pencil for Christmas, and it says, see if you can read that. It says, write that shit down. That's what it says. And so I write that shit down when there's a goal I want to set, because I know that that's going to help me achieve it. Now, there's 4 different types of goals. Your goals are either going to be vivid and well-defined, or vague and amorphous. They'll either be feasible, where you know that you can achieve them, or they're fantastic and you don't know if you could really pull that off. So when we apply these 2 sets of lenses against each other, we get the 4 types of goals. There's the SMART goals that are vivid and feasible. There's the moonshots, which are fantastic, but you know the destination. I like what Les Brown says. He says, always shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you land among the stars. Now, fantastic goals that are vague, they're really just aspirations. They're things you'd like to do, but you don't know how you would ever do it. And then there's routine goals, which we do need. I'm sure that you have a goal every day of brushing your teeth. But it doesn't need to be a SMART goal. You don't need to know exactly what time you brush your teeth or how many times you brush each tooth. It's a routine goal. It's a vague, feasible goal. You know you're going to brush your teeth. But aspirations, those vague goals that are fantastic, those are dangerous. Aspirations are easy to postpone because you have this goal, you know it's something that you want to do, but you haven't made it vivid enough to actually concretize into a plan. Napoleon Hill says, a goal is a dream with a deadline. When you can put a deadline on an aspiration, when you begin to get clear about what it would take and how to get it, that's when it becomes a feasible goal. So I'll give you an example of an aspiration. When I was younger and I had much more chin, I decided that I wanted to marry this beautiful woman. And it was an aspiration that I had one day. Wouldn't it be great if I could do that? And she agreed with me about this aspiration. And we didn't do it for a number of years. We lived together for a while and we traveled around, and her mother began to really, ask me if I was serious about marrying her daughter. And I felt the pressure on. And so I thought, this aspiration really needs to happen. I've got to propose. And one day we were in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where we were living at the time. And we had a romantic moment. And I thought, well, this could be the moment. I could propose right now. And I started getting myself ready for it, but I didn't have a ring. I hadn't made any vivid plans. And so my wife, my now wife, brilliant woman that she is, decided that she wanted to stop this right away. And she got up and she left the room because she knew that she deserved a proposal better than something happenstance. And so that showed me that I really needed to make a plan. I really needed to be active about this goal. If I was just going to be passive and say, well, now's a good time, do you want to get hitched? That's not the sort of proposal that my wife deserved. And so I got vivid and I said, what's the kind of proposal that our grandchildren will tell their grandchildren? So I made a plan. And I told my wife to drop me off at the campus of the school I was attending. St. John's College in Santa Fe, New Mexico has this beautiful campus up in the mountains. And she drove me there on a weekend and I said, drop me off. I got to talk to a professor for a half hour and then pick me up. And so she comes back a half hour later and she was hand delivered a piece of parchment that had been folded into an envelope and sealed with wax. She broke the seal and then opened this parchment to find calligraphy in a poem written in iambic pentameter, which is the meter that Shakespeare used for his poetry. And the poem was a riddle. And the riddle had an answer that was a location somewhere else on campus. And so she left her car and then went to go find this location where she found another folded paper sealed with wax. And she opened it up and there was another riddle in a poem. And it was another location. And she went from place to place around the campus until at the end she found me with a ring. And I asked her to marry me and she said yes. That was a goal that was smart. I took my vague aspiration and I made it a moonshot. I said, okay, how big can I get this goal? How much do I want this? And then I took that moonshot and I made it feasible by giving it a plan. And that's what I want you to do with your aspirations. I want you to turn an aspiration from vague to vivid, from fantastic to feasible. And the way that we do this is by making it smart. Now, there's some variations on this acronym for SMART. The original acronym of George T. Duran used the word assignable. meaning that you have to be able to delegate somebody to do it. But other people have found that achievable or ambitious work better as challenges to your goal. Instead of relevant, it could be realistic or resourced, meaning that it's something that can be funded or you have the ability to do it. Instead of time-bound, it could be trackable and timely. So the precise words you use in your acronym are it's a matter of style. I want you to select the words that matter the most to you. You can also make your goal smarter, where you can make it evaluated or exciting. You can make it reviewed or recorded. So if there's a word in here that really resonates with you, I want you to write down this word as part of your SMART acronym. Because what makes a goal SMART for you might be different than what makes a goal SMART for me. I know where my own limitations are with setting goals and keeping goals. And so I'm going to pick the words that matter the most to me. And then I'm going to write those goals down. We're going to do an exercise where we're going to write 20 goals. And these are 20 goals that you want to do at some point in your life. They don't have to be things that you want to accomplish this year, but they could. They should be goals that you want to achieve at some point in the future. And so I'm going to set a timer for us here. Give me 1 second just to get my tech in order. Oh no, my tech's not working. Okay, well, I will do it this way. My tech is still not working. I do have a timer that I want to share with you, and normally it works a lot better than this. So I apologize. Tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and stop the share and troubleshoot my tech while you spend 3 minutes. I'll go ahead and set this timer for you, and I'll play you some music. 30 more seconds. All right. We have now made it 3 minutes long. Did anybody get all the way to 20? Now type the number in the chat box. Let me know how many you got. 9. Got some 9s, some 10s, 15. Got 10. Yeah, 20 takes some time. What I like about having a big number is it lets you develop what Warren Buffett calls an avoid at all costs list. Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, had a helicopter pilot named Mike Flint. And Mike Flint was taking Warren Buffett all around on all of his meetings. And one day they were waiting on a runway. And he said, how can you help me achieve my career goals? And he said, well, what are your goals? And he had a couple of vague aspirations. And Warren Buffett said, no, you need to set 20 goals. So go home, write 20 goals, and come back to me tomorrow with the list. And so he did. And the next day he had a list of 20 goals. And so Warren Buffett said, all right, I want you to circle the 5 most important goals. The ones that really matter the most to you. If you couldn't get the rest done, which 5 are the most important? And so that's what he did. And that's what we're going to do right now. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I want you to circle the top 3. The top 3 goals. If you could only do these 3 goals to the exclusion of the others, which 3 would they be? All right. So everybody's picked their top 3 goals. All right. So what Warren Buffett said is he said, you're going to divide these goals into 2 lists. There's your A list, the ones you circled, the ones that you decided are the most important. And then there's your B list. And those are all the other goals. And he said to Mike Flint, what are you going to do with these 2 lists? And Mike said, well, I'm going to focus on my A list, and then I'll get to my B list as I have time. And Warren said, no, you've got it all wrong. Work on your A list to the exclusion of all else and just work on those goals. Your B list is your avoid at all costs list. These are the goals that could take your time and energy and resources away from what you decided were your most important goals. If you spend time on your B list, you're not going to make your A list happen. So why do we want these goals? We're going to talk about why in just a second, but first I want to know, how did you feel looking at your B list and thinking that you wouldn't do that? Did you feel like you lost something? Yeah? Like, these are goals. They're things that you want to happen. How can you put them aside?
Right. Yeah, it made me feel like part of me was dying. Like, I'm only going to be able to do this in my life. But it gives focus. I understand that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you finish everything on your A list, then move on to your B list. But the point of this exercise is to decide what to work on first so you don't get distracted. Now, to figure out which ones should be on your A list and your B list, we need to delve into the 5 whys. So what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to look at those top 3 goals that you circled. And I want you to write those goals on the top of different sheets of paper. So your first goal is at the top of a fresh sheet of paper. Your second goal is at the top of a fresh sheet of paper. And your third goal is at the top of a fresh sheet of paper. And if there's another goal that really is heart-wrenching because it's on the B list, write that on top of a piece of paper. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at each of these goals in turn. And we might not get through all of them today, but we're going to start the exercise today. I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask, why do I want this goal? So for your first goal, on the first line, write why you want that goal. And then on the second line, write why you want what's on line 1. On the third line, write why you want what's on line 2. And keep going until you get to 5 whys. If you do this exercise, you might discover something that's more in alignment with your values and your purpose than you thought. And this will help you calibrate what should be on your A list and what should be on your B list. So I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes. Thirty seconds. All right. So did you find anything surprising? Does anyone have anything to share about what they discovered?
Well, I will share how it evolved from a business success to a family success and a commitment to that growth.
Wow. So instead of a business success, it turns out that the why underneath that is the family success.
Right. A special needs son and needs to be provided, and some things that are on track. So.
Mm-hmm. Does that help clarify any of the goals that you've set today?
It kind of reaffirms the why.
Hmm.
And says, okay, there's a purpose behind it, so it adds commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. And that purpose is a great reminder for when goals get tough to achieve, when they're challenging. You know, that purpose, it can help us achieve, it can help us get through the challenging times. You know, the friction is smoothed when we know what the purpose is. I love what Neil Gaiman said about purpose. Neil Gaiman is a fiction writer, and he was giving a commencement speech to a group of college graduates. And he talked about his purpose as being a mountain in the distance. And that when he was given opportunities, he calibrated his choices by this mountain, this purpose behind him. And he knew he wanted to write fiction for as long as he's been alive. Well, I suppose he found it at some time in childhood, but for when he was an adult, he knew what I want to do is write fiction books. He wrote Coraline, he wrote Stardust, he's written, you know, dozens of popular and long-lasting novels. And he took a job as a journalist when he was young. It wasn't writing fiction, but it was on the path towards that mountain in the distance. He saw that by being a journalist, he could improve his craft. He could learn how to write tightly. And he'd be paid for writing regularly. So even though it wasn't what he wanted to be doing, he calibrated his choices based on whether it took him closer to this mountain in the distance or further away. So there's another acronym I'd like to share with you about goals. Some people don't like SMART for various reasons, and so they use this other acronym called FAST. And a FAST goal is frequently discussed, ambitious, specific, and transparent. And I find this really useful, mostly because of the first letter, that F, frequently discussed. I find that if we share our resolutions, it makes it much more likely to happen because we have accountability to other people. It's not something that we wrote down in a notebook and then shut and forgot about. Reviewing your goals with others and with yourself makes it much more likely to happen. This is the biggest reason why I publish my goals on my blog. I don't really care if anybody else reads my New Year's resolutions, but I like to be able to go and review it regularly. If you set a goal and never review it, it's easy to forget. But if you review your goals weekly or monthly or daily, then it gives you a refresh so that when you're given choices throughout the day, you remember that goal, that purpose, way out on the horizon. There's a book that goes into this really deeply called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. And it was written by the Franklin Covey guys. They're the inheritors of the Franklin Covey time management empire. And the authors, Chris McChesney, Sean Covey, and Jim Hewling, are business consultants. And they work with large cross-functional organizations and teams. And they have used this system, the 4 Disciplines of Execution, in multiple settings with hundreds of different clients. And they find that this is a really practical method of goal achievement. And I've been using this in my own career over the last year, and it's been really helpful. So I want to share with you what these 4 disciplines are. The first discipline is to focus on the wildly important. The second is to act on the lead measures. The third is to keep a compelling scoreboard. And the fourth is to create a cadence of accountability. And you can dive deep on these 4 disciplines by reading the book, but I'll just give you a really superficial overview of each one of these right now. The first, to focus on the wildly important, it deals with the Pareto principle, which is that 20% of your effort is going to get you 80% of your results. But the converse is also true, that 80% of your effort gets you 20% of your results. And so that 80% of effort is what they call the whirlwind. It's the whirlwind of daily tasks that you have to do to keep up with the day-to-day. It's the service requests coming in. It's the billing and invoices. It's the emails. It's the stuff that you have to do because it's urgent, but it might not be important. And so this first discipline is about creating time for what they call your wildly important goals. And they've got a whole process for identifying what the wildly important goals are. And then they have a very simple process. Put some time on the calendar to focus on your wildly important goals every week. That's it. You define what your wildly important goals are, that 20% of effort that gets you 80% of results, and you dedicate time to it. The second discipline is to focus on the lead measures instead of the lag measures. The lead measures are the activity that get you the results. And oftentimes we'll set goals on lag measures. I want to lose 30 pounds by the end of the year. That's great, but what's the activity that's going to get you that result? And I find that New Year's resolutions and goals that you set, they're a lot more effective if you focus on the habit that brings you the achievement that you want, because you can't really control that lag measure very easily. It's amorphous. It has a whole lot of influences in it. But the lead measures that lead to those results, those are things that are within your control. And so this is the second discipline, to focus on the lead measures. The third discipline is to keep a compelling scoreboard. Having a visual representation of your goals and your progress towards achieving those goals, it's a fantastic reminder on what you should be doing. I've got dashboards up on my wall. I've got dashboards in my planner. When I set a goal, I say, what are the lead measures and how do I keep track? How do I keep score towards my achievement of this goal? And reviewing this regularly is so effective to keep your goals front of mind and to help you make better choices. The fourth discipline is to create a cadence of accountability. This might be reviewing your list of goals every day. It might be sharing with somebody else what you plan to do. It might be writing a check for a charity you despise and handing it to somebody and saying, cash this check and send it in if I don't keep my goal. I had a professor once at Del Arte, the physical theater school I attended in Blue Lake, and she was doing a one-woman show. She was the director, the producer, the star. She was the only person in the show, and she wasn't rehearsing because it was just her. She wasn't accountable to anybody. And so she went on Craigslist way back when Craigslist was advanced technology. I guess this was in 2001. And she hired somebody to meet her at the door to the theater at 6:15. That was it. That was her job. If she showed up, she said, "Hi, Joan, nice to see you," and then left. And if she didn't show up, she'd call and say, "Hey, Joan, it's 6:15. You're not at the theater. Where are you?" That was her only job, was to manufacture accountability. And that's all that Joan needed to show up every day. And showing up every day, that was the lead measure. Show up at the theater, do the rehearsal. The lag measure is a good show. If Joan sets a goal to do a good show, she might achieve it or she might not, but it's not really within her control unless she focuses on the lead measure and bakes in some accountability. Seth Godin says that your life goals are fabulous. We're proud of you for having these audacious big goals, but it's possible that those goals are exactly what's distracting you from what's really frightening you. The shift in daily habits, that means a reinvention of how you see yourself. So when you set a goal, challenge yourself. Are you willing to take on these new habits to become a different person? The type of person who can achieve those goals. You know, you can drive across an entire continent without seeing the entire path. All you need to see is the next 100 yards in front of you. The turns that you make in the future, the challenges that you face up ahead, they don't matter when you're looking just at the next 100 yards in front of you. And that's what our habits are. Our habits help us take care of what's next, what's right in front of us. And as Benjamin Franklin says, habit takes advantage of inattention. And so if you can create a way to keep your attention on your goal through creating accountability, through a compelling scoreboard, then it's going to be much more likely that you'll attain it. What I've found most effective in attaining goals is this formula. The accountability formula has 3 parts: wins, challenges, and commitments. This is also the outline of it's the agenda of the mastermind groups that I run. We get together and we share our wins, we share our challenges, and we share our commitments. And this formula is really effective for the same reason that it helps you learn how to juggle. So I'm going to demonstrate the accountability formula with a juggling lesson. Okay. And so I'm going to change my camera here. Oh, 1 second for technical updates. All right, so I should be seen over here. You can see me on the big camera? Yeah, great, okay. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna demonstrate how the accountability formula works with the 3-ball cascade. This pattern, the 3-ball cascade, this is what makes you a juggler. There's all sorts of other things that you can do if you want to be an advanced juggler, but if you can do this, you're a juggler. And this relies on one throw, mastered over and over again. If you can do this simple throw 3 times in a row, you can juggle the 3-ball cascade. But you can't do it unless you master the simple throw. Commitments are based on previous levels of mastery. And by mastering this one throw, I don't have to look at my hands. I don't have to look at the ball. I know this so well, I don't even have to think about it. That's why I can make the commitment to juggle 3 balls, is because I've mastered one simple win. Challenges are calibrated with 2 balls. You can juggle 2 balls in a cascade pattern, but when I'm teaching people how to juggle, I tell them to take a ball in each hand and to juggle once. When you do this, you begin to notice where your challenges are. Oh my gosh, every time I do a second throw, it goes so far forward. That's what I need to fix. If you have that problem and you're juggling 3 balls, you're just going to be dropping all the time and you won't know why. But if you can isolate what is that challenge, then you can calibrate your activity to make it more likely that you're going to succeed at your goal. When you have 3 balls, you don't just start juggling 3 balls and see how far you can go. When you're learning to juggle, what you do is you set a commitment. I'm going to do 4 throws. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop. Okay, now I'm going to do 5 throws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stop. Now I'm going to do 6 throws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. By setting greater and greater commitments, you can get yourself to the point where you're fluidly attained with your goal. So the accountability formula, wins, challenges, and commitments, that's how you attain your goals. So I've never done that on a masterclass or on camera before, either juggling or the two camera things. So that was, I didn't know if I was going to pull that off. So that was exciting for me. Thanks. Okay. So now I want to share with you a SMART goal setting workbook. This is something that I use in the beginning of my programs. And if I've got a cohort in a training program and we're all about to start, we start by setting SMART goals. And I'll go ahead and put the link to this in the chat box. This is a Google Doc. You'll have to make a copy of it in order to edit it. The link that I'm giving you, you can't edit. It'll have a button that says request edit access. Don't do that. There's instructions on the front page for how to make a copy in your own drive. And then you just go below that and fill in the blank. I'm also going to give you an annual review workbook. This workbook this has the process that I use for doing an annual review. And an annual review has 4 parts. What went well this year? What could have gone better? How many New Year's resolutions did I keep? And what are my New Year's resolutions for next year? And you can just fill in the blank in this Google Doc and it'll help you do an annual review. For those of you who are watching this live, you got the links this morning with the slides. If you're watching this on the replay, there should be a button somewhere nearby that'll help you get the annual review. I'm also going to give you a link to my own annual reviews because, like I said, I document these on my blog. And you're welcome to read that if you'd like to see what my progress has been like over the last few years. I've been in multiple countries and had a bunch of adventures and set a lot of big goals and attained them. So it's been fun. What I like so much about setting goals in advance is it separates thinking and doing. The mindset that you use for thinking is different than the mindset you use for doing. It's like your thinking cap is different than your doing cap. When you have your thinking cap on, you can think about a lot of things. And it's actually quite easy to go from this strategy to that strategy because you're wearing the same cap. But when you have your doing cap on and you're in the middle of execution, it can really slow you down if you challenge, well, wait, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? It's like the difference between a plane at 30,000 feet and a plane at ground level. When a plane's at 30,000 feet, it can see the entire picture. There's things it can do up in the air that it can't do at ground level. And vice versa. When you're at ground level, you can take on and release passengers from the plane. But if you try and do that at 30,000 feet, bad things happen. When you transition between these two mindsets, there's a switching cost. If you're up at 30,000 feet and you're doing strategic work and you want to keep doing other strategic work on a different project, you've still got your thinking cap on, so it's fine. It's when you want to make that transition from one to another that you become really inefficient. And so that's why I like doing the strategy work at this part of the year, is because then I can decide, what do I want to do for the rest of this year? One of my New Year's resolutions this year was to teach 12 free masterclasses for my community. And this is number 12. Every month I've been teaching a free masterclass, and the topics changed. Because we went into quarantine and the pandemic happened, so I started talking a lot more about Zoom and about remote culture. But I still kept to my goal of teaching a masterclass every month. And it's been really fun. I've successfully attained this New Year's resolution, but now my goals are changing. And so what I'm planning to do for 2021 is to host a ZoomBistro. And the ZoomBistro is a free event. I'm going to start it weekly in January. We'll see if it continues weekly. It might go to monthly. I might stop it at some point. Who knows? But for the next little while, I'm going to be teaching a free session. I'm not even teaching. I'll be leading it. We're going to spend 20 minutes playing fun games on Zoom. And I'm going to switch up these games so that I can, because I like teaching people how to play. Because play is the antidote to Zoom fatigue. If you've got a lot of Zoom fatigue in your meeting, bring in a game. Suddenly, everybody's having a fun time. We'll also spend 20 minutes networking with other professionals in breakout rooms, and there will be 20 minutes of open Q&A. So if you have specific questions about how to be a better Zoom host, whether it's with the tech or the facilitation or the delivery, I'm just going to open myself up to these Zoom Bistros. And so you can go to ZoomBistro.com and we can play some games together if you'd like to see me there. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. For those of you who are here live, I'll stick around for a bit of Q&A. And for those of you watching on the replay, thanks for spending this time with me. And I hope that you achieve many of the goals that you set.